time to let's talk a little Atlantic Division odds. We already did Pacific Division odds, so we'll go with the other ocean and talk about Chris's division here. We throw the odds up on the screen, courtesy of FanDuel there. We got the Canadians at plus 9,000, the Sabres at plus 1,500, the Detroit at plus 1,400, and the Senators at plus 1,100. I do believe this is one of those situations where we are not really looking at the right side to place a bet here. Looking over at the left side, the Bruins at plus 500, Lightning at plus 430, Maple Leafs at plus 300, and the Panthers, the defending champs, at plus 230. So looking at those odds on the screen there, are we in agreement this is more of a left side than right side kind of deal?
It's definitely more left side than right side. I will say this, though. FanDuel is taking a page out of ESPN's, whatever pamphlet they have, because Montreal at plus 9,000, I get that they're not good, but homie, plus 9,000 and the rest of that trash on that side is like plus 1,500 and plus 1,400. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't think Montreal finishes last in their division. I don't think they're going to be elite, but I don't think they finish last. And that is quite a gap there. That is disrespectful, beyond disrespect. Because, first of all, Ottawa at plus 1,100, whatever's in that brownie is what I want, because I want that type of confidence in my team. They are not better than the Detroit Red Wings. They're certainly not better than the Buffalo Sabres. And both those teams, we have no idea what's going on. Ottawa is an absolute just mess. It's
definitely because of the Ullmark trade.
There's course.
No doubt sure,
but they are a diaper full of a young baby's poop and the baby's running around, and it's going to explode. Like, I get that Linus Ullmark is better. He's not saving this team. The Ottawa Senators are just miserable at every single point. Now that we've done that, I think Florida is probably the favorite, and as they should be. And then it would be Tampa Bay for me. Teams with strong goaltending tend to do better, right? Don't forget, Tampa Bay was without Andrei Vasilevsky for the start of last season. When he came back, they got better. I get there's no Steven Stamkos. I get that hurts. I think there's enough skill in Tampa Bay to overlook that just a little bit. They might struggle a little bit, not a lot of it. So if I was going to sprinkle, it would be on Tampa Bay. And I mean, unfortunately, Florida is the best team of that division. There's no question.
Yeah, it's hard to not go with Florida at this point, even though they did win the Stanley Cup. And obviously there could be pains of going through another full season for the third time in a row, right? Because they went to the Stanley Cup 2 times in a row. But they just are the most complete team in that division from top to bottom. So, outside of Florida, I don't know. I may take a chance on Toronto. We're just talking about winning a division, right? If we're just talking about winning a division, and, someone last week sold me on a Toronto goalie. So if that's the case, then, why not? Why not let it be Toronto's time to at least win the division?
That's a great segue, because I tweeted before the show that my pick was going to ruffle some feathers. Now, you talked about the Lightning and the Panthers. My picks would either be Toronto or Boston. So I'm glad you went there with Toronto, because now I don't feel as crazy. Again, we're talking about winning a division. We're not talking about winning a Stanley Cup. We're not talking about winning a conference or even getting out of the first round of the playoffs. We're just talking about winning the division. And what have we said about the Maple Leafs year in and year out is they are a very good regular season team. Joseph Woll's health pending, but if he can stay healthy and play what a 1A should play, I find it tough to think that, they have improved a little bit on the blue line. They have addressed it. They have not addressed it in a major way, but they have improved it. And I know Chris might disagree, but yeah, he's nodding. I see him. But I just think that with what Toronto's done, and here's the other thing, the coaching change matters. There's a very different, we'll say, tonal difference between what Sheldon Keefe sets in the locker room and what Craig Berube sets in the locker room. And I think there's going to be a certain standard that's acceptable and not acceptable. And if you're not playing up to it, he's not going to care what name is on your back. You're not going to get minutes. So I think that accountability, that attitude shift with the coach is enough of a difference for Toronto to win the division. So they're my pick. I can make an argument for Boston too, but I want to, give Chris a chance to respond about the Leafs.
Let's just go over the Leafs blue line because I know it's almost August and this is delusion period for Leaf supporters. So because now we have to tolerate them. Now they're coming in, right? It's the season. Like in the spring sometimes, I don't know if you get there, but there's like pollen and it kind of irritates your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
This is Leaf season. This is where it starts to irritate all hockey fans collectively. Morgan Riley, Chris Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Timothy Liljegren, Jake McCabe, Simon Benoit.
Yeah, that is pairing's lacking, but
okay. That whole pairing is lacking. That is not good. That is not division winning defense. The Boston Bruins have a better six defensively, and I would also argue that the Tampa Bay Lightning do as well. And I would most certainly put the Florida Panthers in there. So the Leafs might have the best, like they're fourth best defensively at best. And now they're relying on a rookie goalie to have to kind of stand on his head here and steal some games for his team. There's no question the Leafs can score goals. And for long periods of time, they've been able to just outscore their opponents at will. But if you're talking about Craig Berube and keeping players accountable and all that kind of stuff, right, then something's got to change in the way that you play hockey. So either you're going to play better defensively to support the 6 trash cans that you got on the back end, or you're not going to win the division. They are not good defensively. And then to flip on the Bruins are the opposite. Right? I think the Bruins goaltending is going to be just fine. I still want to see what Jeremy Swayman can do. Defensively, it's the Bruins. They should be okay. I don't think defensively is the problem for them. But if you look at their offense, man, this is the absolute opposite. First of all, Elias Lindholm and Charlie Coyle down the middle makes me want to vomit. Matthew Poitras is fine, young kid, right? We're not going to saddle him with all the expectations. That top 6 is not good. I know what they did last year. I get it. I'm not betting on guys like Pavel Zacha. You get another year of Brad Marchand aging. Morgan Geeky's in the top 6. Like David Pastrnak, we know what he is. The Bruins can get there by playing well defensively. The Maple Leafs do not have that option. And defense wins championships, right? So
are the Bruins worse this year than last year?
That's an interesting question.
Because remember, at the beginning of last season, you had the Bruins out of the playoffs, and you stuck with that. Is it the same? Are they worse from when they started last season than they are now?
Here's what I will say. I think they are worse on paper. I don't know if they're worse as a hockey team, though. On paper, I don't think, if you ask any delusional Bruins fan, what happened last year was not something they were rooting on, right? Looking at you, John and Pemba. Because some people, I know what I said. I didn't expect them to make it. I was very well out there that this was not a very good hockey team, and they did not get that much better. They didn't. So, we're going to find out which real Bruins team is going to show up, because to me, I feel like they exceeded expectations, and I don't think their team is worse per se on paper really that bad, but I think they are going to regress to where they should have been. That's where I'm leaning at. So the Bruins are not worse, but they're going to come back to reality here.
I think they're just as good as last year, maybe even slightly better. Now, before I go into that, I dropped the link to our fantasy mock draft. It's going to kick off in about 5 minutes here in the chat. So please go on, and if you want to be one of the participants there, come on in. We always prefer to not have as many auto drafts in there as we can, and I'm going to throw that out on Twitter right now. So before I do that, though, we always talked about center depth being an issue. They've improved that. We spoke about that last week with Elias Lindholm. Yeah, I know he could be streaky, but I think he's one of those players where let's face it, when Calgary was a playoff team or close to it, he was playing much better. So he's on a better team now. I think he plays better. You express some concern about Swayman handling the workload as a full-time goaltender. I think Korpisalo, as bad as he is as a starter, is a fine backup to play every 5 nights, especially behind a team like Boston, whose blue line, like you said, you don't love it, but it's solid. It's better than my Leafs pick to win the division. So in terms of value, getting them at plus 500, I expect the Panthers to take a little bit of a step back this year because they have lost some at the bottom of their roster. Their bottom pairing's not great on the blue line. They've lost a little bit at the bottom of the forwards there. You know, I mean, not to say they're going to take a huge step back, but I think the division is up for grabs for someone like Toronto or Boston. We'll see how Jake Gensel fits in Tampa Bay, but because you got Vasilevsky there, that obviously keeps them in the mix as well.
All right, Adam is a Toronto Maple Leafs supporter. Heard it here
for this year. Yeah, you know what? I am. Screw it. I'm on the Maple Leafs bandwagon for this year.
That's so unfortunate.
Plus 300 is pretty good, and I think they can do it. And this is not an indication on playoff performance. I just think, and they get there this year. They get something to maybe hang their hat on, a division championship.
They win the division and then lose in the first round.
That's fine. But I think what Adam said about the coach, the new coach, I mean, Berube, I think that could make a difference here with them. And who knows, maybe it has an effect on those defensive pairings.
We got about 6 minutes to go here before we kick off the draft, and we've got only 1, 2, 3, 4 spots available, so we're filling up here. That's a good sign here, boys. But yeah, I mean, and just to kind of go back to the right side here of the Atlantic odds. I mean, again, there's nobody we're really talking about, but I do agree that Montreal should have a little more respect and be a little bit, better than plus 9,000. I'm not saying that they maybe should. If Ottawa should be the worst team. I know, like Linus Ullmark is a nice addition, but after Brady Tkachuk and Stutzel, there's really not much there. So yeah, I don't know why they're so high. Detroit and Buffalo, I agree, are kind of right there. That's about right for them. But yeah, Montreal should be a lot better than plus 9,000.
Yeah, how did they figure that out?
I don't know. It's a good question.
They didn't. They did it. There's been a lot of chatter because ESPN came out with their top whatever list, and obviously it's ESPN, so they're wrong, right? Just we know this, right? Carey Price was not on the list, which is absolutely wild to start. Carey Price is a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Fight me. Okay. 2, he should have been top 20 in that list. And I know there was somebody who was like, guys like Roberto Luongo and Vasilevsky, and I was like, I get it. I understand. I'm not saying those players don't deserve to be there. Carey Price was the best goalie in the NHL for the better part of a decade. He is decorated with every single award that you can win, with the exception of the Stanley Cup. And that is through no fault of his own, because he played on a terrible Montreal Canadiens team for the better part of a decade. He is single-handedly elite. So the same disrespect now is coming from FanDuel. And I don't I don't know if FanDuel and ESPN are sitting in the same room and saying, hey, how can we gaslight Habs fans? But I am here to support them, right? I'm here to support Carey and the Habs. Plus 9,000 is just you're telling me it's not even close? That gap is wide.
It is.
It's 90 to 1.
I feel like they're going to be better than Ottawa. I feel like even though they have Ullmark, I don't think that they're as good and will be as good just because they got a goalie. They didn't fix up anything else.
I think Montreal is going to be one of those bad but still fun to watch and competitive bad teams to watch that kind of lurks around the wild card picture on the periphery, even into early March a little bit, mathematically alive. A lot has to go. I think that there's a lot, because again, you go the point I made earlier about Toronto with coaching and Craig Berube. Martin St. Louis is an excellent coach. He's going to get those guys to play every night. And everybody's expected, that young core that's now got another year of experience, everybody's expecting to be a little bit better. So, we kind of did the Atlantic Division there. We put a nice bow on it. Ant and I think Toronto can take it. Be throwing Boston as a secondary one. Ant throwing Florida secondary there. Chris all about the Panthers or the Lightning. So we'll see what happens. But we got a couple more divisions to talk about, in the coming weeks here. Somebody commented on YouTube. They appreciated what we did last week with the Pacific Division and wanted to see us do more. So here we go. And we're going to do plenty more. We thank all those for watching today on YouTube at Total Hockey Now. Don't forget, give us a rate, review, subscribe. Hey, State of Survival checking in. I read an article that mentioned the Habs rebuild is over. Do you guys think the same? We got about 30 seconds before the draft starts here, about a minute. I don't think the rebuild is over, but I think they're over like the midway point. You know, I think it's time, like next season, the playoffs should be a realistic expectation for Montreal. Not like top 3, but they should absolutely be in the wild card next year.
Habs are a playoff team next year. Book it.
There it is.
That's it. Playoff team. I would go as far as saying, well, what are the top 3 in the division? We're almost there. We're almost there. I know it's been a while, but we're almost there. Don't worry.
Almost there. There's a lot of people that would be like almost there.
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, and
Trust the process.
Tampa Bay is probably going to start taking a step back at some point soon. You know, Florida, you know, we'll see how they play this year, but they probably aren't going away anytime soon. Toronto, you know, we've given our thoughts on them. We'll see how they handle this year before we. But yeah, I mean, the window may be opening for Montreal to start climbing in the division because Detroit certainly isn't with the signings they've made with, you know, Kane and Tarasenko. Buffalo, we'll see. Ottawa's a trash fire.